We can recommence our typical Friday AMA. Always love starting I kind of like that, starting the day with an interview. That was pretty good, and she's got a good attitude and a good personality for that too. So happy Friday, everybody. Good to see everybody. Looking to see if there's a couple questions that have come up into chat. This one looks pretty good. Don't forget this great opportunity to get those questions dropped in. We'll do some AMA this morning, kind of hang out and have a good time. And I do want to answer that pinned question. Whenever that comes back around. What was that? Where did that question go? Oh, there it is. It's right there. What can an analyst do to prepare for a cloud IR engagement? So, the cloud part trips me up. And let me explain why the cloud part trips me up, right? This is going to be a hot take. This is going to definitely be a dissenting opinion. There's a little bit of a mentality where we treat cloud and OT and IT systems differently. And while that statement in a general sense is true, it's not as vast of a different opinion as you may realize, right? For instance, a data center is a collection of computers. What's a cloud environment? It's a collection of computers. They happen to be virtualized, but it is a collection of computers, right? Okay, so you've got a server in a data center. What does the server have on it, right? It's got a network card, it's got a network interface, it's got an operating system, right? It's probably got an application on it. Well, what does the cloud have? Well, cloud has things with a network interface on it, right? EC2 instances have a network interface on them, right? There's probably some form of an operating system running on it, unless it's a serverless, right? There's traffic that comes inbound and outbound of it, right? There's probably some application that runs on it or around it. And so I say all that to say, like cautionary tales when you talk about I want to do cloud computing, or I want to do, what is an IR? How do I prepare for an IR engagement in the cloud, right? Well, how would you prepare for an IR engagement with a computer in a data center, right? Is it that fundamentally different? And so just make sure that you're asking yourself, are you conflating, are you using cloud in the right way? What difference does it make that it's cloud? Sure, it may be virtualized. Sure, you may have a different org structure in terms of everything kind of pertains to an organization on down. Maybe you have to pay attention to different ways in which things are architected from that perspective, but it is still fundamentally an input and an output mechanism whereby you have to assess the input and the output to see what the impact is to the organization. And so fundamentally, how as an analyst do you prepare for cloud engagements? It's hard to tell. Are you talking about pen testing, or are you talking about incident response engagements? Honestly, I'll tell you what probably the biggest thing, right? The biggest thing that you need to prepare for is access. Chances are your cloud infrastructure was put into place not with security in mind. And so the access that you may have to those devices, as accesses that you may have to the infrastructure with which to do your engagement, may not necessarily exist. And so understanding how you get access to those environments, understanding how you get access to do whatever it is you need to do, whether it's forensics or incident response or threat hunting or pen testing or vulnerability management, right? Whatever the case is, access is going to be key, especially during an incident response engagement. I've seen far too many incident response engagements take way too long simply because the IR team did not have access to the cloud infrastructure. And so I'd say that's kind of like key point number one. Regardless of cloud, and again, I talk about this because I think that there's a lot of very fundamental. So Callie, I see what you're saying, right? But again, I'm still talking fundamentals, right? When we talk fundamentals at the cloud level, you still need a you still need an architectural design diagram, right? Where are all the assets? And that's not fundamentally different between on-prem or cloud, right? You still need to have an architectural design. You still need to have an asset inventory. And that doesn't matter whether you're cloud or on-prem, right? You still need to have an application inventory, right? Now, arguably, an application inventory in the cloud is probably arguably different than an application inventory that you may have, for stuff that's on-prem, right? And so I think that there's still a whole heck of a lot that you need to take into consideration that is all still very basic, fundamental types of things that would make any engagement, IR, forensics, threat hunting, pen testing, vulnerability assessment, whatever the case is, far more successful by just having fundamental best practices put into place. Happy to go into depth on that. I do try to stay a little. You can see that like I'm pretty. I don't like it when people make distinctions in environments fundamentally, because I don't fundamentally think that it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be. Good questions coming through. Let's hit a couple of these. I want to talk about this one. This one was one that was dropped at the beginning of the stream before I had Richa on, and I did say I wanted to come back and address it. And so I do want to kind of come back and address it now, which is how long should you stay employed with a company? This is the one that caused like a lot of cynical answers in chat, and quite frankly, there's a lot to that. I am a builder. And I'm just going to talk from Neal's perspective, right, for a second. When you look at my career, when you look at the things that I've done with my career, right, like I've gone to consulting where I've been able to advise, help build new programs and new functions. When I came out of the military, I was building a new red teaming for a financial institute. When I left there, I went to go work for an MSSP where I was building a multi-million-dollar ARR pen testing practice for them. Build. If you look across my career, I've spent a lot of my times building. So why did I leave the places that I left? Well, I left Abbott, quite frankly, because after 3 years, we had built a lot. We had done a lot of that initial transformation, a lot of that build, and things had kind of started to plateau or stagnate just in terms of like my day-to-day activity, right? I wasn't doing as much innovative stuff. I wasn't being challenged as much. I wasn't, it had become very mundane with the politics, right? It was posturing here, posturing there. It was, how do I get this thing done? How do I get that thing done? It had become dull in that sense, in the sense that like I wasn't being challenged fundamentally. Same with Mondelez. Like my charge at Mondelez was, hey, I want you to do the exact same thing you did at Abbott, but I need you to do it in a short amount of time with a smaller amount of budget. And really, I only need you to do it for like a year or two, and then we could be done with this. And so like it was a finite transformation project that said, here's a start, here's an end. How do we get to be successful? And so we got to the end of that, and we got to a point where, again, I wasn't challenged. I wasn't fundamentally, innovating in that space at all, because it had just gotten to be very, very mundane, right? And that's one of the reasons why I love startups, because I can tell you that every day is a new challenge. Every day there is something new to work on. There is some new thing we're trying to solve for, some new customer. I wish I'd asked Richa this, maybe we can have her back on to talk about what it's like to be a startup founder, right, or to work in a startup. But you think you have a solution to a problem today, you go and you build it and you present it to a customer, and then they turn it on its head, and it challenges your entire way of thinking about how to solve problems and how to solve challenges. And now you're back to the drawing board in terms of how to solve that challenge and how to, kind of meet those customer demands. And so there's a constant challenge in working with a startup. And that's probably why like working in a startup has been very, very good for me, is because I can continue to be challenged just by the sheer nature that it is of working for a startup. And so the way that I answer this question is that for me, I have come to know who I am as a person and what I like to work on and what I like to do, right? And so because of all those things, I know that for me, the time to leave, right, is when I no longer feel like I'm being challenged, right? When I no longer feel like I'm innovating, when I feel like I'm no longer, when I'm the Maytag repairman. For me, that's the important kind of key point for me on when I choose to leave. Now, there's lots of other things to keep in mind, right, in this question, right? If you're, I've had one CEO that I've worked for that was ridiculously toxic, right? And quite frankly, I probably should, if I tell this story, then you'll know who it is that I'm talking about, and I can't really do that. You know, they were just incredibly toxic, and so I made a mental health decision for myself to leave kind of ahead of that, right? Because it was a mental health decision for myself. And so you kind of have to assess what's important to you, assess what values you like in an organization when you work for them. Because again, you're working for them, you're giving them, listen, make sure you're framing this appropriately with yourself. Everybody have a retro or introspective moment about yourself. You're giving your energy to a company. Absolutely. You have to wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, have some breakfast. You're going to fuel your body. And then you're going to take that fuel and you're going to sit on Zoom calls all day. You're going to work on tickets. I know we've got some SOC analysts here who work on tickets, right, on a day in and day out basis. You're going to threat hunt. You're going to pen test. You're going to talk to senior leaders, right? You're going to work on GRC stuff. You're going to spend your energy over the course of the day, right? And so if you're going to spend your energy over the course of the day, you should at some point in time, sit down and say, what's important to you? What do you want to get out of this relationship with this employer? For me, what I want to get out of the relationship with my employer is I want to continue to be challenged. I want to have a fulfilling work environment. I want to feel like I'm making a difference in the world, not, feed the homeless making the difference. But like if I'm going to be part of a startup that's building a program or building a tool that security is going to use, I want to make sure it's a tool that I would use myself. I want to make sure that it's actually going to fundamentally change the way I would have done my job if I was buying the tool that I was selling, right? And so you kind of have to make that self-assessment to yourself. Yeah. I mean, you've essentially got to like make that self-assessment yourself. Says, this is what I want the company to provide for me to be happy. And then when that relationship stops to exist, when they're no longer providing for you and you're no longer providing with them, it's an excellent opportunity for you to reevaluate that relationship. And there was a great follow-on question from Cyberties on this one, which I think is 1,000% valuable, right? And that question really is how does that point of view come into play with the state of the market? This is why I'm a huge advocate day in and day out of you paying attention to the state of the market, the state of the economy, not just locally, but globally, right? Paying attention to the state of that economy is going to be huge. So you're informed with intelligence. Hey, we got a raid coming in over on YouTube from our Simply Cyber folks. Happy Friday to our Simply Cyber team coming in from over there. I apologize that you all didn't get a chance to this morning, but we had Richa call from compliance on this morning talking GRC. There is an hour's worth of great. Yes, Jerry, I had some GRC conversations going on, including some third-party risk. You would be so happy. I actually found somebody who could convince me to maybe slightly, only small portion, actually believe in third-party risk, but you got to go watch the VOD and the replay to kind of go see it. So the state of the market is incredibly important. And so like, this is why I encourage you that you've got to build your own intelligence apparatus, if you will, where you stay informed. This is why I'm a huge advocate for paying attention to social media, having some regular feeds that kind of help you see what's happening in the state of the world so that you can make those informed decisions about, are your needs getting met? Are you still being challenged? Oh yeah, and then by the way, the market's in a good place or the market's not in a good place for you to go and do what it is that you need to do. So lots of good questions there. I absolutely think that that's absolutely a valid way to put it, but it's a very individual decision. It's a very individual decision. Important question: is Air Force a good career kickstart for cybersecurity? Seriously considering this to get top level XP? Yes and no. Yes and no. Like, and again, having Air Force roots, I thoroughly enjoyed my cybersecurity experience in the Air Force. But you have to understand that, like, you don't just like walk into the recruiter's office and be like, hey, I want to do cybersecurity. And they're like, cool, let me see what I can do for you, right? The recruiter's job is not to make sure that you get the job you want. Let me say that unequivocally. An Air Force recruiter's job is actually very counter to helping you get the job that you want to get, without a doubt. Make sure you understand, you hear that unequivocally, right? An Air Force recruiter's job is to fill a quota in all of the AFSCs. All the AFSCs, right? So AFSCs, MOS, like for Air Force, it's Air Force Specialty Code, and MOS, I forget exactly what it stands for. Somebody can Google it, but that's basically your job code, right? Exactly. Callie said it, right? That's your job code, right? And so they're given, like, you know, the recruiter here in Raleigh, right? He's given a piece of paper and it says, we need this quarter 15 security forces, 75 logistics folks, 40 of this, 5 of this, 4 of this, blah, 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 all the way down the list. And so, yes, when you come in to a recruiter's office and you say, cool, guys, I want to be a hacker for the Air Force, they're going to be like, that's awesome. I love that excitement. What else excites you? Like, what are you excited about by getting in the Air Force? And then they talk you into looking at the sheet and going like, well, let's test you, or let's look at your ASVAB scores. Be like, oh, I hear you on the cybersecurity and the hacking stuff, but man, you've got some skills here in this area. You could really go do security forces. Let me tell you how cool security forces is. And they're basically trying to sell you on being in security forces. And eventually they're going to try to get you into security forces. And when they get you into security forces, that's because they filled their quota. They don't care what you want. Make sure you know that before you walk into a recruiter's office. Right? And so when you walk into the recruiter's office, yeah, sure, if you get into cybersecurity in the Air Force, it would be a great stepping stone. It's huge. There's lots to learn, lots to do, lots of things like that. But you are absolutely, unequivocally not guaranteed to get that job. I want you to understand that walking in the door. As a matter of fact, the chances of you getting that job is incredibly low. The secret score. So here, I mean, we could talk about clearances. Like that's a completely other like trap, right? So there's definitely some secret saucy type of stuff that happens with the clearance type of stuff, right? You will not have a clearance when you walk in the door, right? And they know this, like they know that when you walk in the door, you're not gonna have a security clearance. And so they're looking at you and trying to figure out like, okay, how long is it gonna take us to get this guy a security clearance and what are they gonna do, right? So you're gonna be in basic training for 8 to 12 weeks. I forget what it is these days, right? Like you're gonna be basic training for a number of weeks, and then you're gonna go to tech school. And trust me when I say that the tech school for logistics is like 4 weeks, and the tech school for like cybersecurity is like 12 weeks, right? And so like there's a vast difference for how long you're gonna be in that tech school. And all this time, like they're putting you through this schooling, they're putting you through this basic training, your clearance is actually attempting to go through. On average, it takes 5 years to get a secret clearance. 5 years for a secret. To do 100% of the offensive cybersecurity work, you need a TS, top secret security clearance, with SCI, which is sensitive compartmentalization information. And if you're going to do true offensive operations, you need a lifestyle poly. It will take you, even with an expedited process, it will take you close to 10 years to get all of that. It is a disastrous process, right? And heaven help you if you go in to the military and you're older than 18, right? So I went in when I was 24. So if you're 18, check this out. If you're 18, your security clearance starts at the time you're 18. Recruiters love that about 18-year-olds because they're like, sweet, we do not have to go back any further to when they turned 18. That makes the security process a lot easier. But if you're like me and you go in, and this is good, this counts for if you're taking a government job, if a civilian service job, whatever the case is, a contractor job, whatever the case is, I was 24, which meant they had to go all the way back to, when I was 18, 6 years. 6 years of my life, having never spent any time in the military, I had no clue the lobotomy that I was going to be under to have to get my security clearance. And remember, I'd been in startups. Like, I'd worked for fast-paced companies. So, like, I didn't have contact information. LinkedIn wasn't a thing back in those days. God, that makes me sound really, really old, right? Right? So, like, trying to find who knew me when I turned 18, who knew me when I lived at this random apartment that I lived in for 6 months when I moved out of the house and away from my parents, who could vouch that I lived in that apartment, right? The startup company that I first started to work for had gone under. So how do I get in touch with the people who ran that startup company? Where even were those people who ran that startup company, right? Who are the people that knew me on a personal level, right? As I left school and went to go work in the professional world, right? Like, all of this stuff, right, that you had to know to put onto a security clearance form, an SF-86, and then you had to put that stuff on a form, and then they have to go check that. I kid you not, if you put that your mom's uncle's cousin knew you when you lived at this apartment from May to June, they will go talk to that mom's uncle's cousin. And they will knock on their door, and they will ask them some of the most personal information that you could ever think of in your entire life. So, what do you know about Neal? Has Neal ever taken money from you? Did he ever pay you back? Do you view Neal to be a trustworthy individual? Do you think Neal would overthrow the government? Right? Those are the types of things that they ask these people. And some of you are like, oh, I'm totally going to rat out Bobby when he comes to me and they ask me those questions. I'm going to be like, no, you wouldn't believe this shit we did when we were kids. Right? They take that stuff seriously. That stuff's not a joke for them. And they write that stuff in a file, and then they're coming back to you, and then they're talking to you about it. Yep. They are having that conversation with you, and they're going to be like, so, I talked to your friend Bobby. He said that you and him went out to the cow pasture one night, started tipping over cows, and then extorted the farmer for $10,000. Is that true? Did you do that? And they're going to talk to you about it, and they're going to try to assess whether you're a liar or not. And all that stuff, that's what feeds into your security clearance. And we haven't even got to a polygraph yet. We have not even got to a polygraph yet. There are two types of polygraphs. There's a lifestyle poly and there's a counterintelligence poly. The counterintelligence poly is pretty easy. The counterintelligence counterintelligence polygraph is really, are you going to overthrow the United States of America? Do you hate the government? Are you going to overthrow the United States of America? Unless you've been crazy on social media, typically most people can pass, that poly. The lifestyle poly makes you feel so dirty, you want to go take a shower afterwards. It is a lifestyle poly for a reason. And they're not looking, and this is the other part, they're not looking to embarrass you. What they're doing is they're looking to see if there's anything that can be used by a foreign adversary to extort you into giving them government secrets. That's what they're looking for. And so they want to know your secrets before an adversary knows your secrets. And so you're going to be expected to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. You're going to be expected to. And so, yes, all this is not to say you should never go into the military. But you know me, I want to make sure that you're informed about what's going on when you go and you take that step. And yes, it is 1000% legal to do, right? Because they are the U.S. government and they have to protect national security, and they have set forth, as Richa just said, policies to manage their risk. In their mind, the risk is espionage. The risk is that somebody could come and say, I'll give you $10 million and sanctuary for the rest of your life if you'll get on a plane with a thumb drive full of NSA secrets and fly to our country. Sound familiar? Right? It is absolutely legal. And good. Like this is, I'm glad. Good information. Thank you. I still want to go serve in the Air Force, but still do cybersecurity. Please do. Absolutely. My goal is not to shy you away from it. But again, walk into it eyes wide open and get ready to bend over and spread it. Because you're gonna, like, they're gonna run it through you. They are gonna run it through you. Good one. Just since we're on the same topic of security clearances and whatnot. I just saw that message come through. Where was it? There it is. During the security clearance, do they read candidates' phone messages and listen to calls? No, not typically. That requires a warrant to do that. That's still part of the legal process. And so no, they won't read it, but they'll interview people. And what they're looking for is they're looking to catch you in a lie. Right? They're looking to catch you in a lie, and that's the big thing. Good questions. Yeah, keep those coming. Happy to talk about this process all day long, right? When I did it at 24, did I know what I was going to counter? Hell no. I had no clue. I had no clue. Nobody in my family had ever, I mean, the last person in my family to be in the military was my dad's dad, and he flew P-51 Mustangs in World War II. Actually got shot down. He spent some time in a German concentration camp before before they were liberated, and he came back from overseas back to America. And he died long before I had ever made the decision to join the Air Force. And so I had nobody in my family that I could ask. As a matter of fact, my dad and my mom were very anti-military. They were very anti, government, if you wanted to say it that way, in some sense. And so when I actually told them that, I'd gotten laid off from 3 startups. So the startup grind pre-military really burned me out on startups. Like, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work for Query, and I love the passion and the excitement of working for a startup. But it was definitely a little bit PTSD pre-military, and even some of my risk decisions when I came out of the military to go work for big enterprises was because I didn't feel ready to dive my toe back into the startup space. Because I was laid off at 3 startups. I went through the first .com boom in the 2000s before I went in, and it traumatized me. Like I was very, very close to homeless. I was, renting rooms in people's houses, for like $200 a month to live, just short of like living in my car, because I was, living off of unemployment and credit cards and stuff like that. And so no, when I went in, I knew nobody. I knew nobody I could talk to. I didn't know anybody in the military that I could even consult with. I didn't even know how to go about talking to anybody who'd been in the military to know what I was walking into. And so, no, I literally was the person who walked into the recruiter's office and was like, I need a job. And little known fact, so again, I talk frequently about like the universe corrects itself pretty well, right? I went in and I was like, I need a job. Now, keep in mind, I had a 2-page resume at the time. It was all cybersecurity, what existed as cybersecurity in the 2000s, a lot of IT stuff and things like that. And so like I walked in, I was like, I need an IT job. And the reason I could tell this story is because that's exactly what the recruiter did to me. The recruiter was like, I got you, don't worry about it. And then he was like, well, how soon do you want to get into the military? And I was like, I need to leave on the next boat out, because like that's how desperate I was. And he was like, well, I can get you into security forces. And I was like, sweet, I'll go be a cop for the Air Force. I don't mind whatsoever. And it wasn't until the last minute that I was in the recruiter's office. He says, you wouldn't believe what just happened. A slot opened up for the Air Force's equivalent at the time of IT administration, network administration, things like that, in the military. Do you want that slot? And I was like, yes, please send me that slot. And so I managed to get in on that slot literally as I'd gone through the entire pre-enlistment process where they medically examine you, determine you're fit for service and things like that. And I was sitting down before signing my papers and basically getting sworn in that I was going to go to the military. That's when I got lucky enough to get the slot that I got into that set my career up. And so no, I had nobody that I could talk to about this, which is why I share the story so frequently, is because I want you to understand, like, hey, like, There's a lot to this process. A lot to the process. Upgrading Jeff on YouTube says some recruiters will straight up lie and say, sure, here's the MOS you want, and then get to MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station, I think, or basic, and that job is not what you thought it would be. Yeah, and they've also done like where there's a clause at the bottom of it that says, hey, you're signing up for this if it's available. However, when you get here, the military, the Army, the Air Force, whatever, reserves the right to change it based on demands and needs, which is very similar to the clause you sign in the private industry, which is like, hey, your job title is CISO, but there's this little block down at the bottom that says, or task otherwise assigned by leadership, right? Like, this is the same thing, right? And so, like, you know, there's always that clause that says like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I know you're signing up for X, but we're gonna, like, you know, probably put you over here into Y if you know, decide that that's what you want. So Frazier, good to see you. Thanks for the sub. Been subbed for 30 months. Hard to believe that it's been almost 3 years, brother. Good to see you. Hope the family's doing well. Super excited for your progress. You've done a lot of really, really great things. Keep those questions coming about the military. Happy to continue to answer those. I know that is a viable option for a lot of people. Let's make that expressly clear, right? There is definitely a viable option for people to join the military and be successful in cybersecurity. Just make sure you know what it is that you're walking into. Prince Paradox over on Twitch says, is the CISSP worth getting? Only you can determine worth. It sounds like, if everybody remembers the Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. Is it worth it to get? I don't know. I know it sounds weird to say, right? Is there good information in it? Like, I can't help you decide if it's worth it. Do I think it's worth it? Hell no. If you're asking Neal's personal opinion, is the CISSP worth it? The answer is hell no. Not in a million years. Right? Is there value to it is probably the better question. Right? It can provide you some nice value on a resume. There's lots to learn in CISSP, and it helps you understand that there could be 4 right answers, but of those 4 right answers, one is more right than the other. Think about that for a second. Because it's very, very much what cybersecurity is like. It depends. There could be 4 right answers, but one is more right than the other. And so that's a very good test to take, right? Is the test to see if you can decide which of the 4 answers is the most right in the equation. There isn't a best one. There is not a best one. Listen, and I'll die on this sword. I'll absolutely die on this sword. I'll die on this hill. I'll totally hamburger hill this one. I'll charge up this hill all day long. I don't care. There is not, quote me on this, there is not a best cert. Period. Dot. End of discussion. Right? Back in my day, when there were only 4 training providers, sure, I could give you an answer because there was a 25% chance of it being right. Right? It was either EC Council, CompTIA, SANS, or offensive security. Right? That's what existed back in the day. Now you can go on YouTube and you can learn the exact same thing for free on YouTube. So what you're paying for is some random schmo on the internet to put their name on a piece of paper that says, yep, you watched some videos, you answered some questions. Good job. That's right. And Hack the Box has certs now. Do you know why Hack the Box has certs? because it's super easy to write certs. It's super easy to just issue certs out. You get, I need a, Jens, this goes good on a clip, right? You get a cert. You get a cert. Give me an Oprah meme. You get a cert. You get a cert. Everybody gets a cert. All right? Like, that's how easy it is to make certs these days. If you've got a teachable platform, you can make a cert for your course that you sold for $19.99 on Teachable. That's why there is no best. If your answer, and I want to say this for the elitist in chat who are keeping quiet. If your answer is, well, they help you get through HR, you're not asking for what cert is the best. You're asking for how do you play to win the employment game. Think about it. Any of my gamers out there hate play to win games because you play and you get the most powerful stuff out there? You're no different if you're chasing certs to get past HR. You're playing to win. If you want to play to win. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, that's why there's a business for microtransactions inside a gaming industry, right? Because it works. People who are not skilled enough to actually do the game will pay to win. There, I said it. There, I said it. Right? I'll never answer that question. There's never best one. When I was at INE, I never said that INE search for the best. Go back and look at all my content. I never said INE search for the best. It's not a position that's ever changed. I hated getting the certs that I got. I'm glad that I got them, but I got them because they were given to me by the Air Force. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had a chance to go through them. The baby is focused on this soapbox. Right? It's tough, right? And listen, I empathize with a lot of you. A lot of you want jobs. A lot of you want the key to success. A lot of you want to believe that there's a magic formula. There isn't a magic formula. Right? You didn't come here, hopefully, to have me tell you that OSCP is the best and you should all run out and get OSCP. This is why I don't take money. This is why I don't take money from education vendors. If you look over the history of this stream, the only time I've ever promoted education vendors were ones that I myself personally went through and issued the content, but I've never, ever, ever used the word best. Right? The certs and the education is not the magic ticket that you think it is. I know that that's weird for some people. I get it. I understand it. Question over on LinkedIn, because I want to make sure LinkedIn gets some love over there as well. Happy to see all my LinkedIn folks. Iris over on LinkedIn says, what branch would you recommend going into if you want to enter into cybersecurity? Thanks for the question, Iris, on LinkedIn. Either the Air Force or the Navy. Yes, the Navy. Little known secret, when we were building the first functional training unit for the Air Force, we stole most of our stuff from the Navy down in Pensacola. Not going to lie. They were doing it first. The Navy was doing offensive cyber-ish because they had a stronger, intelligence function than we had in the Air Force at the time, arguably. And they were doing much, much more cyber stuff than we were doing at the Air Force at the time. So we stole most of our stuff from the Navy. So I attest it is either going to be Navy or Air Force that probably has the majority of the good cyber stuff if you're looking to get in. Yes, either Air Force or Navy. That's right. There's a preach from a fellow grunt in chat. Where's Jack? We didn't write it in crayon. Hopefully he's not eating them. Thank you very much for your service. as an Army vet. I appreciate it. Another military question here. Many people talk about top secret and secret clearance levels. Are there lower levels? Can you talk about those at all? Do they take the same amount of time? Are they easier to get? I think there was at the time somebody who maybe newer, keep me honest on this, but I think confidential and public office or public service, I think, are the two lower level. Are the two lower level certs? Yeah, public trust. Public trust or public trust. I think it is public trust. Thank you. There's confidential and public trust. I think are the two lowest levels. And so if you're working like municipal government, state level government, things like that, you probably have a confidential or public trust type of clearance. I think that's the lowest level one that's there. Security clearances are super, super weird. Fried Callie says, what should I know about cybersecurity as a product manager? I love this. I deal with a lot of product managers, obviously, at Query. We've got brilliant product managers. I'll give a huge shout out to Mike Bousquet, Brian Way, and Jonathan Rao. Excellent product managers. If they're watching, I heart you guys, and I absolutely love working with you. You guys are some of the smartest people I've worked with in this industry. And obviously I've consulted with a lot of folks from the security vendor side. I do product management consulting with a lot of them, as well, and just kind of give them feedback. I mean, one of the relationships that I have with compliance is to kind of advise them and their products in terms of like what I'm seeing and how I would use it out there, right? And so I talk to a lot of product managers. I say that to say, I think my perspective is, there is frequently too much focus on features and not enough focus on solving actual problems, right? And I think we see this in marketing. I think we see this in how the message gets out there. There's a drive, I think, this is my personal opinion. I think there's a drive sometimes to get people hyped and excited for features. But features don't always solve a problem. But if you set out to solve a problem, you'll build the great features along the way, right? And you'll probably be more innovative in solutioning those features if you're solving a problem. And so I always try to encourage the cybersecurity folks that I talk to who are in that project management stuff. If you've never done the job, spend time with the people who have done the job. It doesn't hurt you. Interview them, sit down and over the shoulder with them, talk to them, right? Spend time with them as close as you can get to, picking up the keyboard and working on the keyboard with them, right? Get as close to that as humanly possible, because I think that's what makes you successful in the problem-solving area. I can't stress that enough, right? Most cybersecurity products fail because they rely too much on these cool features that somebody thought up in a think tank, because you allowed one person to build your product based on what they wanted instead of what the customer demands, right? All of these things exist as problems for us on the ground because you just didn't come to us and talk to us. And I'm not saying my opinion's right. And there's definitely a law of statistical analysis where you've got to talk to so many people before you can be like, okay, this seems to be a trend. And I get that. I understand that. My encouragement to you is to do more of that and to make it an efficient process so that you can get to the root cause of what the problem is that you're trying to solve so that you can be successful. A huge shout out to our product team. I'm design partner number one. I'm customer number one for Query. And I spend so much time with our product team. It feels very much like I'm lobotomized, and I love every minute of it. Call me a glutton for punishment, but they spend an inordinate amount of time prying the same knowledge that I give to you guys for free. When I come in here and stream, they pry it out of my head on what feels like a daily basis sometimes to try and understand the problem. So absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Good question. Good question indeed. Man, that was good. That was good. I think that's probably good for this morning. We've talked a lot. We've got a good audience, man. We've got one of the best audiences we've seen in a while across all the platforms. You know, it's looking like across all the platforms, we're coming up on 150 viewers. I want to thank all of y'all for coming and hanging out with me on this Friday. Thank everybody. Real quick, hit !AI if you're in chat on Twitch, and we'll get one of the mods to copy that over onto LinkedIn and to YouTube. We had Jax on yesterday, and Jax did a master class on AI for those who are AI aficionados, right? Absolutely fantastic course or fantastic discussion on AI. She made available to us all of her AI research that she did for a class that she built for ACI Institute. So all the research that she went through to build a class, she made available for you all. And I just posted the link across all three of the platforms so that you guys can go and enjoy all that content for free. All right. Make sure you go tune into yesterday's stream with her as well so you can see that. With that being said, Carmen is definitely out on a business trip again next week, which means I get to hang out with you a ton. The two are not mutually exclusive. I just use that as an excuse to say that, to, you know, remind you. So I'll be hanging out with you guys again next week. We'll probably do some streams Monday night. We'll probably also do a game night next week as well. Feel free to come in, chat with us as well. Yes, I'm wearing my blue Ferrari shirt. Yes, I'm wearing my blue Ferrari shirt. With that being said, whether you're on the red side, listen, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for tuning in to me this week. We will see you next week. I miss and I love all of you. You all make this stream so much fun. You make this community awesome. Hop into Discord. I'm pretty sure Maz is going to organize a Friday night jam session, hanging out with everybody tonight in Discord. You can oftentimes catch me there, giving out free security advice. Good time to get one-on-one. Make sure you hop into the Discord as well. And stay awesome. Stay awesome. And I'll see y'all next week. Whether you're on the red side or the blue side, keep learning. And we'll see you next week.